Given that there was pretty much zero drama at this year's Oscars ceremony, I thought that I would start some for literally no reason. This is entirely unprovoked. I just woke up and chose violence. But it's like the most harmless form of violence, because today I am going to be judging actors, not for their abilities, not for their delivery of their lines, not for the emotion that they poured into their performances, not for their talent, but I'm going to be judging them based solely on their taste in literature. Last time I made a video like this, I focused on actresses in Hollywood, like Florence Pugh, Cate Blanchett, Olivia Wilde, Zoe Kravitz, Jessica Chastain, etc, etc, etc. And this time we're focusing on the actors, because I believe in equality. Everyone gets roasted on this channel the same way. No one is safe. We're judging every book, everywhere, all at once. Talking about judging people, Austin Butler. I don't know if anyone has ever worked as hard as Austin Butler to get an Oscar and then not got one. And by the way, these lists were curated by an amazing Instagram account called @CelebBookRec, so go check that out, I'll link it down below. Thank you very much. Okay, so we have On the Road by Jack Kerouac, Catcher in the Rye by J.D. Salinger, we've got Raymond Carver. This is giving, I have never read a book by a woman ever. I beg you, I am literally on my hands and knees asking you, please read literature written by women. So here we go, we have On the Road, and he says Kerouac is one of his favorite authors. I spoke about this book recently on my channel. On the Road is a road trip novel, which was very new and exciting at the time in which it was published, but it's kind of boring. People always are amazed that this book was written in 3 weeks, but I think it reads exactly like something that was written in 3 weeks. But it does have some really beautiful lines, so I'm kind of indifferent to this one. The Catcher in the Rye is also one of his favorite books. This is about someone who is completely and utterly insufferable, so checks out. What we talk about when we talk about love is by Raymond Carver. This is such a brilliant short story collection. It's so good. Raymond Carver really did carve the way in this genre. I'll give him that. And then also we have Jack Gilbert's poetry. This is called The Great Fires. Elvis has left the building, and so has my interest in reading Austin Butler's book recommendations, because they're a little bit stale. Honestly, I'd walk straight past this like Vanessa Hudgens at the Vanity Fair after party. Yes, I went there. Jacob Elordi is also going to be playing Elvis Presley in another biopic no one asked for. It's kind of like when Kristen Stewart played Princess Diana immediately after Emma Corrin nailed it in The Crown. Like, respectfully, I will not be watching, but I appreciate that you're gonna do what Austin Butler just did. All I really know about Jacob Elordi is that he is tall, and that's really it. So let's see what we find out from this. Well, firstly, take a shot every time you see someone recommend On the Road by Jack Kerouac. You may be hammered by the end of this video. In the video that we did on actresses, everyone recommended Patti Smith. Maybe there are two genders after all, and it's people who recommend Patti Smith and people who recommend Jack Kerouac. Oh, he also recommends The Secret History by Donna Tartt. Okay, Dark Academia. He says, I believe it to be her best work. It's so good, and I would die to see that as a movie. He's just like me for real. Only facts were spoken. If this movie ever actually gets made, a movie of The Secret History could end Hollywood. Like, we could just pack up after that because we would be done. That would be the end of cinema, because nothing will top this ever. And I kind of feel like it's part of the fun that the movie has actually never been made, even though it's almost so obvious that it should have been made. No one has ever felt confident enough to do this book justice as an adaptation, that they just haven't even tried. And I respect that. He also recommended Nausea by Jean-Paul Sartre, and he says, I've only just started it, but it seems to be about a dude who thinks way too much about everything. It's so incredibly relatable. I kind of love that he brought up a book in an interview that he'd only just started, pretty much just because it sounds really clever to be reading this. I too would confidently explain a book that I have no idea about when I've just started it with my whole chest. The game is the game, the hustle is the hustle, do what you gotta do. And if you've read a little bit of this, you deserve to brag about it. Then we have East of Eden by John Steinbeck. He says this is one of the books that resonates with him the most. Genuinely, I think this is one of the best books of all time. It covers so much ground, it really captures the human condition so intimately and powerfully and beautifully and intricately. I love that. He also read The Odyssey because I felt like going on some kind of adventure. I loved it. Fair enough. I think I like Jacob Elordi a lot, you know? I think I'm a new fan. And actually, when I made a YouTube video about the cast of Euphoria's book recommendations, I read A Bright Ray of Darkness on his recommendation, and it was surprisingly incredible. I absolutely devoured this book. It's a semi-autobiographical book by Ethan Hawke, kind of about when he had cheated on his wife and his life was falling apart and he was about to star on Broadway for the very first time, and he's just nervous and anxious about how the public are going to perceive him. And it's this fascinating insight into fame, into acting as a profession, and it's just so vulnerable and honest, and it doesn't position the autobiographical main character as someone you're meant to like. You're just meant to understand what they're going through, you know? We love a flawed main character in this house, and Jacob Elordi plays one with Nate Jacobs, so there you go. Next we have Chris Pine. I would love to know your book recommendations. I would also love to know if Harry Styles spat on you. But for now, your book recs will do. So here we have some interesting ones, and finally, mostly female authors. It's about damn time. It's about damn Pine. Lady Joker sounds cool. 5 conspirators decide to carry out a heist, kidnapping the CEO of Japan's largest beer conglomerate and extract blood money from the company's corrupt financiers. Then we have A Little Life. Now, every time I see someone recommend A Little Life, I feel this kinship towards them because we're all depressed. And after reading this book, we're all just recovering. He said this book made him cry. I feel you. That is relatable content right there. Thank you, Chris Pine. We also have Wolf Hall. This man must have muscles from carrying around all these heavy-ass books. These are thick. We also have Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor E. Frankl. Pine says he reads dreary but ultimately insightful books like Man's Search for Meaning by Holocaust survivor Viktor Frankl. Yeah, so this is a really powerful book and a very moving account. We also have A Visit from the Goon Squad by Jennifer Egan, which he says blew his mind. I'll take that recommendation, that sounds good. Then we have All the Light We Cannot See by Anthony Doerr, which is a book I didn't love, but I feel like everyone else does. So this is a case where I am willing to accept that maybe I'm just wrong, but I've tried 2 of his books now and I didn't like his writing style in either of them, so I feel like we don't vibe, we don't gel. And then finally, we have Tender is the Flesh, which is a book about cannibalism. It's quite odd. It's about this odd little dystopia where basically all of the animals in the world have got this disease, and so humans can no longer eat animal produce. And so, instead of just going vegan or vegetarian, we decide to farm humans instead and eat other human beings. And like the whole ignoring veganism was a bit of a flaw in this book. It's never acknowledged why we wouldn't just do that. Instead, 0 to 100, we're just gonna be cannibals. And that's end of story, no questions asked. It's a kind of mediocre book. I think it's shocking just for the sake of it and doesn't really go anywhere, but the ending is kind of shocking, so I'll leave you with that. This is a kind of messed up list of books, to be honest, and I highly approve. Next, we have another Hollywood Chris. I'm not gonna lie to you, I think this looks like the most boring list of books I've ever seen. Maybe one day we'll have like a Hollywood Hunger Games where all of the Chris's fight it out. Maybe on Christmas, just for funsies, I don't know. Anyway, back to the books and not talking about like purging the Hollywood Chris's. Firstly, we have Walden, which is basically all about the joys and the beauty of the natural world and how it can be our greatest teacher. It's about rejecting consumerism and materialism and capitalism. And comrade Chris Evans posted this on his story with the caption, love it. Siddhartha is about a man who is looking for spiritual fulfillment, and he tries lots of different ways on this kind of quest, but ultimately he finds that it has to come from within, and that's the overall sort of message of the book. This was Chris Evans' favourite book growing up, and it's still my favourite book today. I read it for the first time in high school, and up until that point I'd never read a book in one sitting. I just couldn't put it down. No other book has made such an impact. Cool. It's giving, I am a spiritual and philosophical person and I'm gonna make it everyone's problem. Bill Bryson, Billy V. So my university library was actually named after Bill Bryson, so even seeing his name gives me like war flashbacks. Suddenly I feel like it's the night before an essay's due and I'm typing frantically again. But this is a short history of nearly everything. A lot of people say this is like essential reading at some point. And Chris Evans says, I can't say it enough, Bill Bryson's A Short History of Nearly Everything is amazing. All caps. You know they mean business when it's in all caps. It colours in my life in the most beautiful way. And then caps again, read it. So that's a pretty strong recommendation. I think I should read it. All caps. And then apparently he also has a tattoo from this book called Stillness Speaks. It's on his chest and the quote says, when you lose touch with inner stillness, you lose touch with yourself. When you lose touch with yourself, you lose yourself in the world. That is a long quote for a tattoo. How big is this man's chest? Like, I can fit 2 words on mine. That's not even a long quote, that's a short podcast episode. But fair enough, you can go and Google Chris Evans' chest now if you want to find that. And then we also have Sapiens, which he says is truly mind-blowing. It's changed the way I look at almost everything. I can't endorse it enough. These books are like the Avengers of the deep thinking section in a bookstore. But another reading list to marvel at is another Marvel actor, and that is Sebastian Stan. And we do, Sebastian Stan. Okay, so we have Sapiens again, we also have Catcher in the Rye again. The Course of Love he listed as a favourite during a meet and greet. I actually would list this as one of my least favourite books that I've ever read. It's basically about this couple and their failing relationship, and then Alain de Botton interrupts the narrative every now and then in like this italicized paragraph where he gives an observation on human behavior, which is so freaking obvious, Stevie Wonder could see it. And I just found it annoying that he kept interrupting the story. I was like, we are intelligent enough as readers to read between the lines. We don't actually need you to put something between those lines and explain it. And if you're not making it obvious enough through your writing, then maybe you're not writing it well. Do you know what I mean? Then we have Ballad of the Whiskey Robber. Welcome to Julian Rubinstein's uproariously funny and unforgettable account of crime in the heart of the new Europe. With a supporting cast that includes car wash owners, exotic dancers, drunk army generals, cocaine-snorting Hungarian rappers, Ballad of the Whiskey Robber gives us the most charming outlaw hero since the Sundance Kid. And the Sundance Kid didn't play hockey. Okay, that sounds cool. Before we move on to our next set of recommendations, I wanted to let you know that today's video is kindly brought to you by Squarespace. Squarespace is the go-to platform if you want to create a website or an online brand. If you've always been worried about starting a website because you're like, I don't know how to code, don't worry about it. Squarespace does all the hard work for you. They have a really dynamic and broad range of templates which you can customize and make your own, so you can create something that really exudes your personality. And another way to do that is by using their blogging feature. Having a blog on your website is a great way to give people a little behind the scenes insight into what you're up to, what you're working on, and connect with your audience. And they also have great analytical tools too. So you can head to squarespace.com to get a free trial. And then when you're ready to launch your beautiful new website, you can use the code jackedwards at squarespace.com/jackedwards to get 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. I can't wait to see the websites that you come up with. Maybe you'll make a website about celebrity book recommendations. Who knows? The possibilities are endless. Next, we have Taika Waititi. Now, House of Leaves in the middle there is such an interesting recommendation because it's basically like a story within the story. So it's a book and then there's another story kind of hidden within the footnotes. So I've heard this is very fascinating, but it's also a time investment if you want to read this. He says just read it, it's only 50,000 pages long. So there you go. Next we have Eggs Benedict Cumberbatch, and he recommends When Breath Becomes Air. I actually literally just finished this book, and it's a memoir about a doctor who gets cancer, and his wife actually finishes the book after he dies in the process of writing it. It's quite moving, it has some interesting observations about life. He was also a literature student at one point, so he talks about science and art in a very interesting way. Benedict describes it as fascinating, heartbreaking, and inspiring. We then have Do No Harm by Henry Marsh, and this actually sounds like a very similar book to the last one, and Saturday by Ian McEwan. I'm not gonna lie, this book looks like every other book that you would find in like an airport bookstore. This looks like something that all the dads on a holiday all-inclusive hotel would be reading around the pool. Am I wrong? I feel like my dad probably owns this. And then we have The Hobbit, which we're not really surprised to find in this list considering Benedict Cumberbatch is in the movies. So that was bound to be in there. No shit, Sherlock. Pedro Pascal, I'm actually making a whole dedicated YouTube video to, because this man really is everywhere all at once. He is the man of the moment, but let me just tell you, I have found 2 new favorite books of all time from reading his recommendations. So look out for that video coming very, very soon. I'm very excited about it. King of self-promo over here. Andrew Garfield, I also made a whole dedicated video about, with a little bit of Rilke, a little bit of Salinger, and also he introduced me to Mary Oliver's poetry, and I'm forever indebted to this man now. Previously, my favorite Garfield was the cat who loves lasagna, but Andrew has overtaken. And also, Timothée Chalamet, maybe you should go and watch my video that I made on him as well. There were some gems like Call Me By Your Name and Crime and Punishment by Dostoevsky, and then also one of the worst books I ever read too, so life is about balance. Someone I almost made a video on was Robert Pattinson, but the moment kind of passed. These book covers look like they all have the same Instagram filter on them, like they're slightly sepia. The filter is called Dull. We have Money by Martin Amis, which is the hilarious story of John Self, one of London's top commercial directors, who was given the opportunity to make his first feature film. Alternately titled Good Money and Bad Money, he is also living money, taking money, and spending money in his relentless pursuit of pleasure and success, as he attempts to navigate his hedonistic world of drinking, sex, drugs, and excessive quantities of fast food. Self is sucked into a wretched spiral of degeneracy that is increasingly difficult to surface from. And then Robert Pattinson said he's just like the book's narrator and wants to play him in a film adaptation. That seems like an odd thing to say. say. I think that sometimes Robert Pattinson goes into interviews and just does a random generator of like what he's gonna say, because he always comes out with such random stuff. I feel like he rolls the dice to decide what his opinion on things is sometimes. We also have 2666, which he describes as one of his favorite books, and this is known for its strangeness, beauty, scope, and throng of unforgettable characters. So interesting. Now we have Donald Glover. Now, 2 of these books are about children who are neurodivergent, so that's quite interesting. The Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime is such a brilliant book. And then this is called Future Shock. It's by Alvin Toffler. Future Shock is the classic that changed our view of tomorrow. Its startling insights into accelerating change led a president to ask his advisors for a special report, inspired composers to write symphonies and rock music, gave a powerful new concept to social science, and added a phrase to our language. Published in over 50 countries, Future Shock is the most important study of change and adaptation in our time. That sounds so good. And Donald Glover says this is very pertinent right now. So I think I'm adding that to my reading list. And with that, we are done with our little insight into the books that Hollywood heartthrobs are reading. Let me know whose reading list you think sounds most interesting, who you're gonna be taking some book recs from. A massive shout out, of course, to Squarespace for sponsoring this video. Thank you so much for watching. You can go and check out my other Celebrity Book Club videos on my channel, and you can subscribe if you're new. All the best, stay in touch, have a wonderful day, and I'll catch you very, very soon. Bye-bye!